There it is.
We are recording.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
good evening, everyone. This is the Enfield Master Planning Task Force. It is Monday, July 15th. I'm calling this meeting to order at 6:33 PM. Members of the task force present from my left.
Celia Fiero.
I'm David Frack.
Lindsay Smith.
Over there.
Joellen and Courtney.
And staff people.
Rob Taylor.
Whitney Banker.
And our consultants on video, Liz and Crystal, welcome. I suggest we put the minute after we have our discussion. Oh, people walking in, that's okay, really.
That happens.
I was really like making sure because about some family.
And show the house. Go ahead. Get yours.
So I suggest we put the review of the last set of minutes. Well, we should do it now because we've got discussion stuff in red. What do you think?
So those aren't them, so yes, we should do the minutes, but the minutes are. This is just a convenient way, these
Oh,
are not the
okay.
minutes.
All right,
Rob has the minutes,
You need minutes. Anybody need minutes?
yes. Let's just get them done, and those are just a convenient way to add in commentary.
okay, so
That's not the document.
let's go ahead and take any comments or questions, corrections on the minutes. Are there any?
Anybody else need a set?
Good, I'm good with them. Does anyone need more time to review the minutes? Hearing none, would somebody like to make a motion on the minutes? So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Phil, seconded by Shirley. All in favor of accepting or approving the minutes from our previous meeting on June 24th, indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed and abstention. Minutes are approved as written. Thank you again, Whitney, for another great set of minutes.
Yes.
Okay, next order of business is a discussion on the draft recommendations. So,
You have those ready to project? Yes.
There were a few questions that were in the minutes from last time, and were they addressed?
they are
Yes.
addressed in this, which I'm not sure if you have it or not.
Okay.
No.
The answers to the questions are in red, and they're just there for our convenience in finding them.
Okay, I don't recall.
We didn't get this, it was by accidentally, the wrong document was sent out. We got so I'm sure that, is there any way to see Liz and Crystal while looking at this, Rob? No, I think we all have this in our hands, so we're fine. Anyways, I'm hoping that they'll be able to address some of these as we go through this SWOT analysis, so. But there was a mix up in documents, and that's why you didn't see it. Thank you. Yeah. Let's turn it over to Liz.
Great. So I guess, just so, we're clear, so did you all receive 3 documents from us for this meeting?
Not
Should be.
sure about 3.
So that would include, the final, the draft recommendation, sorry. The answers to the questions and comments that were discussed in the minutes in a separate document that has my comments in red. And then
Yeah.
the last part was a revised summary, outreach summary that incorporated the comments that we just made them directly. You'll notice that we didn't comment on some of the questions and suggestions you had, and we just made them. And so that's in the most up-to-date summary document. So those, and if you don't have any, we'll make sure that everyone gets, like, especially the outreach summary. I'm not sure if that was sent as a separate attachment.
Okay, so the outreach summary is that like 57 page.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's what
Yeah.
that was.
Yep. So we added a few, we made a few suggestions that were suggested at the last meeting. We also added a slide that talked about how the key findings were created, which seemed to be, that came up in a couple different ways in the comments. And other than that, we also explained some of our rationale within the meeting minute document. And so if you did get that in advance, if anyone has any specific questions or comments on our answers, we're happy to take those. Otherwise, we can kind of weave it into the discussion, whatever maybe the chairs think is best.
So again, I didn't get a chance to see these comments that you had sent. So my question was in general about, was this incorporating the survey and the information from the forums?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So what we did is that so SurveyMonkey was the online tool platform that we used for the online survey. And then we basically took all of the responses that were submitted at the forum events and we put them in SurveyMonkey. So they're all in one place.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other comments on the outreach summary, particularly in response to some of what we provided today?
All total, we only got 71 responses.
So this is where it's a little funky. So we have the number of people that actually attended the events. People who attended the events in person were not required to fill out a form for every topic. So some people might have filled out a form for every table. Some might have filled out just a housing form. Some might have filled out, a combination of 2 or 3 of them. We don't really know. For the online responses, we do know because they were already categorized into SurveyMonkey. So the way that we kind of counted like total responses is that we had 70 sets, which essentially means like one set is basically, your conservation, your town facilities, et cetera. It's all 5 topics together, but it could have been a lot more that responded. We also didn't winnow out necessarily. We have that one question that asked if you attended the community forum events, so that people who filled out the online tool could differentiate whether they attended in person or not. But there's no real way of preventing people from filling out the tool twice on their own. So this is kind of our best bet as saying like we have 70 total responses as far as like data collected. Does that make sense?
Yep, it seems like a very small sample though for the size of town we have. There's 3,000 people, and there are 4,000 people in this town.
Yes.
And 71 people responded.
Mhm.
Pretty small sample.
It is.
Now, how does it compare to the first time the first one responded?
How many do we have the first time?
300 and some odd. So I think we're looking at less than a third, maybe a quarter. But that was also, that number is consistent with the number of responses that we got on the zoning rewrite portion of the public forum. A small sample.
Gee, It isn't surprising, really.
It's not, there's a few things that you have to look at. Constraints of time, constraints of money. You know, if we had more time and more money, we could keep that survey open. We could do all sorts of things. We could do a lot more advertising. We don't have either at this point in time, unfortunately. Some of the things that Liz already mentioned, it's possible that somebody who attended the forum could have gone on, so, you know, the sample size could actually be smaller. Those are just things that you write up and saying that these are, and then we do our best to say, what else have we been hearing? And that's why also the master plan, remember, it's a guiding document. It doesn't set policy. It helps to guide, but it needs to get revisited and redone and see if it's still temperature checking. But we do have a smaller number of people that participate and a larger number of people that don't participate, and that's just.
You find that in most any survey is sent out.
Absolutely. You know, 33% is statistically significant. Not 50, you know, so we're not at 33%, but
We also did outreach directly with committees.
yeah,
With
so we,
conservation and heritage.
this particular segment of stuff is a little bit different because we're working directly with committees who should have their finger on the pulse, and you might represent a larger bank of knowledge in a sense, but
Yeah, I suspect that once we get a draft document up on the website and people get a chance to look at it, then we'll have people that will be coming in and saying, I like this, I don't like that, can we change whatever?
yeah, and we have to be careful about that. But let's go on to Liz. Talk to us
Right,
about
yeah, and we'll still be like a lot of that phase one outreach that had the 300 so responses inform the development of the previous chapters, which we're building off of. And they're all related to even some of the topics that we're exploring now. And so it is one document, and we're going to make sure that the outreach kind of correlates well together with these chapters. Okay, great. Any last comments on the outreach summary before we dive into the next piece?
Nope.
Let's die.
Okay, great. So we are at a turning point in the project where we're shifting into chapter writing mode. And so before we dig deep into writing, we wanted to vet these draft recommendations for each chapter topic with you today. We're seeing this as a conversation starter, since this is the first time you're seeing what we're kind of pulling out and seeing as themes that are influencing the development of draft actions. But we see you all chewing on this for as long as you need to, knowing that we'll want to leave tonight's meeting with a clear timeline. And so we really tried to follow a similar format as the other chapters, with about 8 to 10 recommendations for each chapter. And so we noticed that was done it looked like intentionally within the other chapters of the document, and we wanted to kind of keep that similar level of flow, and also ensuring that there's enough specificity that they're going to be useful and acted on, while also providing enough looseness that the processes and projects can be designed by the people who are actually going to be implementing them, especially because some of them might need additional public outreach and additional, work to really fine tune the direction that they're going to go in. So these draft recommendations came from conversations with all of you, from the outreach that we did with the respective boards and committees that align with each topic, from the public outreach that was conducted. So like the outreach summary and all of the raw data that was sent to you at the last meeting. And also from the analysis that's gone into the project thus far, our understanding of Enfield. Additionally, each chapter in the phase 1 master plan update had a SWOT analysis that contributed to Enfield's understanding of these issues, and what we are assuming also contributed to the development of the recommendations themselves. So we began the process of creating SWOT analyses for each topic to inform the draft recommendations as well. We may be missing items, and there's often overlap between, for example, threats and weaknesses and things like that. We could spend a really long time trying to just perfect one SWOT analysis for a topic is what my assumption is. So we'll keep trying to zoom out and remember that we're working at kind of a 30,000 foot level, while also creating some dialogue with you all to let us know whether we're missing some really important components in understanding the issues, which we really want to hear. So we think that it will serve as a good beginning point. So you've had time to review the draft recommendations, is that correct? Ahead of this meeting, folks in the room?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, perfect. That's great. And so I am happy to pull, I do have the slides handy. I'm happy to pull them up. I was going to avoid spending 25 minutes going through each page, verbatim, and more so take comments on each topic, if that makes sense. And so we can just focus on, the bundle of pages that are associated with conservation and then move on, and I can take any comments related to those. And whether they're big or small, you can tell us if we're totally not hitting the mark, or if there are smaller changes that need to be made, we'll take it all. So does that sound good for an approach?
Yes.
Okay. So you'll notice that the recommendations are not fancy at all. They're not formatted in the chapters yet. We really just want to float the actual content to you. And then we'll get into integrating it in a much more, beautiful way within the chapters themselves. So let me just. Hold on just a sec, trying to. Can you all see my screen?
No.
no,
Okay.
But we saw your screen, but it was us.
Okay. Oh, you did. Okay. That's okay. Okay. Can you see this?
Yep.
yeah,
Yep, there we go.
we got it.
All right. So the first topic that we included some draft recommendations and a SWOT analysis for is conservation. And so I'm curious to know first, are there any comments, or suggestions, questions related to the conservation SWOT?
My comment would be that you were absolutely right on. Cost to do the right thing is a barrier, and that is over everything.
And when you say over everything, do you mean almost across topics?
Yes.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Other
So-
thoughts?
I'm gonna look at you specifically, Celie, since you're our resident conservation expert. Not that other people aren't, but are there
I don't
things?
know if I don't know, understand what you mean by cost to do the right things a barrier.
So that was something that we heard from our conversations with the Conservation Commission. And we included, again, there are some of these overlap in various qualities. You could kind of consider it a weakness or a threat, I guess. But the way that we were interpreting this was that in order to do more to conserve land, to protect natural resources, sometimes the cost to do it and people's perceived value of what is going to be the outcome of that cost is a barrier to actually passing with voters or getting public support.
I have one thing that I think, that I wrote in green infrastructure solution. And can you give examples of that? Because people don't know what that is. I don't think it's the general person. And I mean planting trees along the sidewalks or some of the roads and that allow for the the cooling down and so on and so forth, which is part of green infrastructure solutions.
So that can be part
Just
of
give
the
me
actual
an example.
chapter.
Yeah.
The SWOT analysis is like it's like a quarter of the page, and it kind of just includes some really brief descriptors for each of the categories. But the chapter really gives us an opportunity to highlight examples, be more educational, tell people what we mean with the terms that are being used. It's because I agree with you. I think green infrastructure is not intuitive to everyone, and it should be defined in a lot more robust way.
I have some on the next page. I
Oh,
wrote some notes.
so the next page, you mean the draft recommendations? On the draft recommendations?
Yeah, conservation, on the
Okay.
second page of conservation.
We're happy to go to that next page.
And
You
then,
all set?
and
Go
then,
ahead.
I was just gonna ask, a lot of these, came from the comments on the surveys, I assume, too.
Yes, that informed them.
Number one, review and strengthen Enfield's land use regulation to better protect water quality and sensitive natural resources like wetlands, vernal pools in town. I would like to see, forest and habitat added to that. Cause we've got forest in town and we've got habitat, got bears running all over the place.
We
Yeah.
can add that.
Got prime wetlands.
well, do we not have that down in 8? And are we protecting, we don't have in-town forests. Like, I think that's means where there's a differentiation. We don't have, we might have bears running around in town, but that's,
Well, what are we calling in town though?
well, there is a village and there is a main area. So a rural area, an actual rural community has a more dense, developed internal area, whether it's directly in the middle or not, surrounded by farmland, agriculture land, forest, etc. But the in town where
Well-
there's streets and things.
There are a lot of forests that are,
It's not saying in Enfield, it's saying in town. Like, there's a differentiation.
would you call Sugar Hill Road in town?
We're close to it. Yeah, we're on the cusp. Our in town is quite small. But I would consider like the bullseye of it to be Main Street.
No, there are no forests there, but there are along the lake and this, cross sport.
Yeah, so-
I mean,
That
that's-
was-
And wildlife corridors.
but they're also in here on a different.
Yeah.
They're also in here on a different one, so we don't need to reiterate constantly. So that recommendations are pulled out to highlight different things. So that's where,
well, then I need them define what's in town.
Well, Steely, what if you were to suggest that a forest is a block of trees of at least 50 acres, 100 acres? I don't know what's a good number, but maybe we could define it that way. And that general block, that general undeveloped block would have a minimal amount of residential development. in it. Is that a way that
It
would,
is, but I'd like to look at the maps before I just figure
okay,
a thing.
maybe you could take a look at some maps between now and the next time
Okay. I'll
and
do
come
that.
back at us
Okay.
with a recommendation from the Conservation Commission.
So I do have a quick question, and I'm wondering if do we want to say in town, or is it really
Yeah.
in Enfield? Because I originally intended in town to mean in Enfield, and so, and and again, this is what you all decide, but is the vision for this recommendation to be more broadly applied to all areas, to all the future land use areas in town? Because if so, we should say in Enfield to avoid confusion.
we just get rid of those two words and full stop
Great
after.
call. Great call.
Yeah,
Because it already says Enfield.
Thank you. That's a much better solution.
What were you gonna eliminate?
The two words in town, because it already says in Enfield.
And this way it can mean
Enfield
in the
land use
village,
Oh, got it. All right. I
by the
didn't-
lakes. Yep.
That's good.
And then if you want to, I mean, I know it does talk about forests and other things, but if we are looking at sensitive natural resources, we've called out wetlands, we've called out vernal pools, we could call out wildlife corridors. Something
Yep.
that's a
I
little
love
bit more
that.
sensitive than forests.
I
Wild
love
forests are
that.
sensitive. They're not
Yep.
as susceptible. Yeah.
Well, they're important also to the.
I understand, I know. I
No,
know,
it's-
there's a differentiation here. If we could just undo all modern development.
Well, there you go, using modern.
Anything since the 1800s, I think is probably,
I mean, I don't understand what you mean by
I
modern.
know.
All I can think of is, I don't know,
Mhm.
you know, what do you want? More buildings, type of buildings? Shopping mall or something, is it, you know, modern, what are we talking about? Anybody else? Have any comments on that? No?
No, number
On
one,
development,
On draft recommendations overall.
yeah, I had a couple. Um,
Is that Joe Ellen?
yes,
Okay, I'm gonna take your couple of recommendations, and then I just want to ask a broad question to the group afterwards. That just like a pulse check, like overall, how does it look? So go ahead, Joe Ellen. I'm gonna take your specific stuff first.
on number two, it says about the state of Enfield. I would suggest using a different word rather than state.
Mhm.
You know, like status, level, something like that.
condition,
Pardon me?
condition.
Yeah, just
Okay.
the word state somehow brings up other things.
Great, we can do that.
And the next would be number three. Was an interesting concept. Investigate feasibility of a stormwater utility. It's like, huh,
Yeah, we've been working with a lot of communities that are either in process of researching and investigating incorporating one, and others who have implemented utility and are seeing a lot more success with getting projects done faster.
okay.
Hmm.
I was intrigued by it, that's all.
Yeah.
It's like,
I wanna talk about 7, participate in regional water planning and protection of the watershed planning. And, encouraging septic, no, that's a jump the line. Planning and protection efforts. And I don't know, my idea is when they do the regional plan, the regional watershed, it's much further out. And it's not really focused on our lakes. And our lakes have a definite watershed that would affect them. And I'd like to see that done, like the commission did something on one, for Crystal Lake. Those, I think, make a big difference in the, for everything, for the stormwater, you know, it just, you have to be more focused on what we've got in Enfield. Because I think I've seen that watershed for the, region. So it goes way out, and when you measure a watershed, you usually do the height and follow the contours up and around your area, which is the highest and highest points. And then that draws the watershed for you.
Jody Connell used to describe it as a funnel. You have the high point and it all goes down, the lake is at the bottom of the funnel. And so everything that goes on in
Yeah.
that watershed affects.
I know, Ed Morris is a committee or something going on about that. But I really think Enfield itself should focus on its own watershed.
So Liz, can you,
Elaborate.
elaborate on what we mean by regional and why we would do that versus
Yeah, so
Like
this is,
trying to section ourselves off and from everybody. Yeah,
this actually came from, Steve is the one who actually plugged this recommendation to me because he attended, for the zoning project specifically, a meeting with, and I'm gonna get this wrong, one of the Lakes Commissions, is that correct, Rob? And anyone else who was present at that meeting?
2 lake associations.
Two
Yeah.
lake associations, thank you, that's the right terminology. And it was brought up that there is some work being done on a Mascoma Lake. Does that make sense? Watershed plan, like a regional effort that's underway or going to be kicking off. Does that
That
sound
helps.
familiar to anyone?
Yeah, I think regional in this context means, Enfield, Lebanon, Hanover, and I can't remember what other
Right.
town is in it. And, you know, Lebanon has as much skin in the game regarding Mascoma Lake as we do, if not
Right.
more. Because the lake is their drinking water supply.
Right.
So, you know, I think participating in this effort, which is multi-town and is probably a 2 or 3 or more year project, is something that we probably ought to be in favor of,
Well,
rather than just looking at our own, because
Maybe we should do both.
well, that's what
Yeah.
I was just gonna say. I think
Okay.
both. On a small, because we already are participating in that. We really won't start to work on it until around September, I believe Ed said. But, Canaan is a part of that too, and it is covers a wide area.
yeah,
And I
and
agree with Celia, we need to focus on our watersheds right around the lakes too.
I mean, at this point in time, that regional or multi-town has funding
Yes.
and we don't.
can
So,
we add a word and say local and regional
That'd be
watershed planning? So therefore it incorporates
go
both.
along with that.
Yeah,
That's good.
Yes,
that's,
yes, that's a great, simple, change. That's great. Other comments on the conservation draft recommendations? Overall, did it seem like a lot of the stuff that you wanted to see that kind of percolated in conversations was there? Was there anything missing that you were like, I'm really surprised that this isn't here?
I like number 10 very much. I think it'll keep a healthy balance.
Yeah,
Great. Okay, I'll move to the next slide unless there's other comments.
Anything else on conservation?
Thank you. And Lindsay, I appreciate that because I'm sharing my screen, so I actually can't see the room right now. So thank you. All right, town facilities and services. Are there any questions on the SWOT here? This one felt a little light to me as well as far as the threats. And so I'm happy, I'd love to engage in conversation about that if it feels like there's anything that needs to be added.
under strengths. You've got the, says this, the new facilities that we have is needs for the next 10 years. I hope it's longer than 10 years. It is after doing Whitney Hall and a police thing. I think that's longer. It's done for longer.
Yeah, we can, and we can say longer. We merely were talking with the municipal facility group, and we were literally talking about the next 10 years, but I don't think it was just limited to that as far as this comment about these new facilities meeting Enfield's needs for the foreseeable future.
I think we're looking at least 50.
Good.
Yeah, this is also written in
That's
master
good.
plan language, and the master plan should be updated every 10 years. So
Oh, I
Yeah,
see.
exactly.
Yeah.
there's, yeah, we're behind by 2 decades. So, um,
I think maybe we ought to at least mention somewhere in strength, our town library.
Great call. As a community asset,
Yeah,
great.
you know, it could just be added into that first bullet, I think.
Okay,
I'm not sure, I'm not gonna word this properly, but as a threat is, some of the brownfields and things that we have to deal with before we can then deal with them, would those be threats? So Shed Street sites
Yes.
and places, cause that's also growing budget part, but it's a deeper issue. Cause we have to clean up contamination.
yep, great call.
That street's okay.
No, I don't know if it's Shed Street. So that's why I said maybe speak, but we've got some brownfields that we have to clean up and deal with that week before we can sell those properties or other things that have been suggested.
Yep.
That the town is responsible for.
I'm wondering about, I'm not sure if this is a weakness or a threat, but, the new, public safety complex is limited in terms of its, energy efficiency. And I think that is a weakness.
Yep, I think that a weakness, that's the right category.
And that again is due to money.
Does that go in town? I guess they're either energy or town facilities, probably town facilities.
Yeah,
Facilities.
yeah, and
That's a specific.
Yeah, okay.
there's overlap between those, but we did
Absolutely.
include it as an opportunity in this as well. And we can decide whether it feels like it should be in another topic later.
It's a good place for it to be an opportunity, because I talked to the town manager, there's a backstory to that. The federal government will pay for a solar array on top of the building, but not on new construction. So the building's got to get constructed first, and then down the road, you can apply for a grant and put on the building.
Yeah.
Okay. It's crazy, but that's what
Yeah.
it is. That's the rule. So it's still an opportunity down the road, once we get the building built, to go for a federal grant to put renewable energy on the building.
Aren't they sort of pre-positioning conduits and that sort of stuff?
I'm hoping they do. So that's all done, and it's just a matter of running the cabling.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's an opportunity, clearly an opportunity down the road.
But it just as an aside, that makes me nervous that we hope they are. But we don't really know.
Better to have the infrastructure there
Boy,
for advancement versus not, and then,
my
I know.
point is that we don't know that
Yeah.
that's.
that's true, absolutely.
Any
All
other
right.
comments on town facilities, or should we go on to the recommendations?
This, I don't know, stagnant tax base and growing budget. I think some of that's overspending the town. Not including the new facilities, but like buying the land for the new facility. And I'm gonna jump to the other page, and I'm talking about these little things that get added in, these committees, and I just think that spreads, increases the budgets. It says, number 2, develop an asset management program for tracking the maintenance of all town-owned facilities and infrastructure, and to inform Enfield's capital improvement planning. And isn't that the department's responsibility, the difference for departments?
It would be
Um,
Public Works typically.
Yeah, I would think so, but.
This
Well,
is,
no,
it's designed to save
everything.
money overall.
It could be anything, you know? Um. Any department we have.
Yep, this is just giving them a guideline to say, here's something to add to your list of things to do.
And and there's a lot of case studies that as the asset management programming in general for the maintenance arms of town governments is becoming much more of a standard thing we're seeing. And largely because it's just a tracking system essentially to make sure that decisions for the way that money is going to be spent to upkeep infrastructure and facilities is done in a logical and well tracked as far as organizationally goes way. And so these asset management plans are a way that many different departments, I'm sure that if we talk to someone from Public Works, someone might have heard of it, because it seems to be very commonly adopted by a lot of New Hampshire communities today. So that's why we included it in here. But we're happy to do, if there is a recommendation that any of you question as to whether like, would this be of interest? We're happy to talk to, the right person or one or two people within the town and just kind of say like, have you heard of this? Is this something that your department would be interested in implementing? Because if the answer is a hard no, maybe it's not the right recommendation for this particular plan. Maybe it's something that can be looked at again in 10 years, or et cetera. So we're happy to do that.
Well, I think it is, the tracking, the maintenance is very important. We've talked about it a lot at budget committee meetings. Because the maintenance lots of times hasn't been tracked in the buildings. And all of a sudden it's a serious thing that needs to be addressed right away. So we thought it was very important to track the maintenance in all the facilities.
So your department heads don't come in and tell you what's needed and.
They do, but I mean, there isn't an overall, tracking of all the facilities.
It's our town manager do. That's what.
Well,
So, all right, we're not gonna do this.
Yeah.
That's not appropriate. Listen, no, we're not gonna do this. Listen, these are 50,000-foot recommendations. So we're gonna go through that. I'm not gonna get into that language.
Okay.
And, we're not going to. These are
You're gonna learn something.
50,000.
You're gonna learn something because people
Sealy.
can read this.
Exactly, and these are 50,000-foot recommendations. Okay, well, guess what? I'll say the same thing to everybody else. Recommendations to help have a guiding document for the next 10 years. So, do we see anything in here that has not been included or is egregious? And I do think, Liz, that it's a great idea. As we are saying, do we get this right? That we have, town facilities look at this and go, oh, that's way out of, hard no, or whatever. But I think all of these make sense as recommendations and things to build upon. Not gonna go down these nitpicking, inappropriate lines. Let's get the work that we need to do here done.
That.
The work that we need to do here done.
I just don't wanna see the town, for everything we've got, keep making, committees.
There's no committee here. There's no committees here. There's no committees here. These are recommendations.
Well,
And you know what?
that's fine. That's okay.
These are recommendations and they're recommendations within departments.
I'll forget it. Go ahead.
So-
It's,
Go ahead.
I have a comment on threats, and that is, climate issues could be.
That's true.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, especially looking at some of the maps that just showed, some of how the town-owned resources are impacted by those potential events in the future. So, yeah.
I saw a great meme today that said, this is the coolest summer for the rest of your life.
Oh my gosh.
Right? It's the hottest summer ever and it's the coolest summer for the rest of your life. So
Heat is interesting.
gonna strain our resources in a different way. All right, do we have anything else on the draft recommendations? Great, let's move on to recreation.
Okay, great. So any comments on the recreation SWAT?
I'd like to add something that nobody's brought up.
Okay.
I think hunting, fishing, horseback riding ought to be in recreation as one of the things that people do, because they've got a lot of the other recreation, we we've got, you know,
Mhm.
you know what I mean, because they don't talk about hunting and fishing. The wildlife management is set up for hunting. And, people in town, if people in town love to hunt and fish, that should be in recreation.
The first one does cover a broad rate of a wide range. It's from one type of recreation to another.
Yeah, I mean, it can't, you know, at 50,000 feet, we can't get down to the granularity of every single recreational activity.
Not in this document, in the
Right.
narrative, in the chapter
Yes.
narrative,
Yes,
it would be there.
yes.
And,
That they
and a
used
good,
to make
and a
hunting.
good, right, so, yeah, some things are definitely pulled out, not every single thing is. And in the narrative, I definitely think expanding on our outdoor recreation, that
Agreed.
because we do have good fish and game, uh, lands,
Totally.
for sure.
I'd like to add on the weaknesses, and I'm not sure if it would be back to the facilities or not, and it's, lack of online access to classes that are
That's-
at the community building.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Online access to what, is the last word?
Courses.
Access.
Okay.
And I'm assuming you mean, like signups and stuff like that. It's not, you're not able to access and like sign up for a lot of the classes online.
No, that wasn't I don't know if that's the case, but that wasn't what I was meaning. If there's like armchair yoga, that could be available.
I Zoom.
Yeah. Right. But
Like on
the-
Zoom?
Right, but the facility
Got it.
itself does not accommodate very well to any kind of,
I saw somewhere in here, it talked about, was it in this particular chapter about, eventually updating the,
Yeah,
like, working with the community, but maybe that was a different.
There will be a large room available in the Whitney Hall when it's finished upstairs. That could be used for.
So maybe
That's
it's,
true.
well, when I look under weaknesses, there is something there. It says recreation infrastructure needs are present. And it says, coordinated upgrades for the community building.
okay.
So I guess that. it's
Or maybe it's just another bullet point that's like online, you know, and it could be anywhere, so it doesn't have to necessarily be at the
Yep.
community building.
Correct.
Cause
Yeah.
the community building is terrible for zooming from.
Right, and that was,
But if there's like, whatever, but just having online classes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Overall, thing,
yeah, good enough, thank you.
and like that,
Great.
And there will be Zoom or Teams built into that room, so it'll be easy to use.
right? That might be under the opportunity, well, it can be a weakness too, because it's good if there are multiple points, wider diverse of recreation programs and infrastructure. But,
Any other comments on the recreation spot, or should we move to recommendations?
No.
Okay. Comments on the draft recommendations.
but that's where I saw the develop a community-driven vision for Hughes Park and community building
Yeah.
improvements, okay.
And a recreation master plan.
Mm. Yep.
Is it a master plan or is it a strategic plan? Or is there a difference or?
We've seen them framed in both ways. Like a strategic element can be incorporated into the project. It really depends on the town's needs and the goals of that particular document. So.
Okay.
Looks good.
Going once, going twice.
Is the Trails Master part of the recreation department or the conservation department?
Conservation.
So number 9's got to get moved, Liz.
Do you think this needs to get moved? Okay, we can do that to conservation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Sorry.
It's good because some of these topics are really interrelated and a few of these recommendations can be fit in more than one. So thank you for helping us winnow out where they should be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Shall we move on?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thanks. Heritage.
Heritage,
Heritage and preservation.
Weaknesses, no comprehensive inventory map of historic places. We have that.
Yes, okay, you do have a map and it is
And we have a list. We have a list of all the houses that are in the historic register.
So can we move that to strengths and take away the word no?
Love that
that
idea.
seem appropriate, although
Well-
if you want to look at historic resources in general and look at things like old schoolhouse,
Yeah,
That was what we originally meant by
that
it.
kind of
Was,
stuff, which are not in that historic district.
So how do we,
no.
how do we sort it out where we've got it as both a strength and a weakness? Because we have a comprehensive inventory of some.
protected sites.
Well, we would say
Village.
we have a historic district. And Rob, refresh my memory on what we learned last week.
Yeah, so there's a.
The historic
downtown
district
area.
and the historic, the Enfield Center one.
So overlay.
And yes.
No, not the,
Rest
The
of the
three,
town.
with the three,
with the three,
Yeah.
what is that called specifically?
they're just,
That's the historic,
that's a historic
the
district.
historic district, and then
Right.
what's the other one? That has no requirements or rules, the one that covers, the village and beyond.
That's a historic.
District.
uh,
There were two different terms that, and I don't have all those notes.
And
It was a little confusing.
It was, but it was definitely straightened out.
yeah,
Yeah.
It's just that it went in one ear.
So a strength is we've got a certain percentage of the town.
Well, certain type of,
Inventory.
isn't it?
Historic register, is that what it is?
yes.
National Register of
Yeah.
Historic Places.
And
Okay.
isn't it, we have certain types of things that are inventoried, like houses, but not stone walls?
Not
Is that-
barns.
Not barns. So I think that's where some of we have a really good inventory of these things. We don't have a very good inventory of these things.
Yep.
So to
Might
me, that
be-
means you have an inventory of some historic resources.
Yeah.
And there's an opportunity to
I know.
expand and build upon that.
Yeah,
we go.
I mean, we have some that are formally
Yeah.
outlined, mapped, and accounted for. All the structures are accounted for. And then there's a whole lot of others that we know they exist, but they really are not formally inventoried and accounted for.
So we should expand these.
So.
Right, there's an opportunity to document some of these additional resources that are currently not. So we can finagle the language for that.
Okay. We'll let you guys do the words.
Other thoughts?
I think another weakness we have is, and we discussed it. I haven't heard to everybody does to me, but we have, when they ditch the road to get very close to those stone walls, and then once the trucks go by and they start rolling down and the stone walls are being broken up. And it's just the way they, not all the ditches, but I see it happen all the time. Even on, the scenic roads. Even on Potato Road. My own stone wall disappeared because they kept widening the road. And I'd like to see that as a weakness and maybe we can work on with the town. Public utilities or public works department to see if the guys can't just do it, be aware of that. Because the other thing they all do is if they go and cut a tree, I've talked to the manager times about this. When they cut a tree in a storm or something, they let it fall on the stone wall and leave it. And then so when it rots, it just turns into dirt and it just, that's what happens. So I'd like to, how do you want to put that? Is anybody interested in doing that? Because I think we're losing it one by one.
I see that falling under the bullet point under threats. Potentially, I don't know if
That's,
like that loss of significant, or like, I don't know if it falls under there, if there's another way to kind of modify that one to. Maybe we take out the word significant, just historic elements. We could say
We could also
significant.
even add, so we say loss of significant historic elements to development. I'm wondering if it's like, and something else like, and, like, not insensitive management practices or like, we want to like increase the awareness of these resources so that people see them as valuable and to take care around them.
Yeah, so somehow how do we describe it as like, we're, again, everything has to be a balance of, we're balancing stormwater runoff and protecting roads so people can get to work. And then, and how we manage that. And then, and as well as like infringing on stone walls. And
well,
don't get offended, I'm just trying to talk it out here.
If,
There's a balance there.
yeah,
And
but it's a
we have-
value.
exactly, but there's a balance there, and some people value being able to drive down the road and go to work. So they can, so how do we write that in a way that's sensitive to both what's going on? Sometimes a tree has to come down because it's rotten, or other things have to go in. We need to take that tree down in a way that also protects the stone wall. There's a balance.
I have
We have the
wording.
words. Okay.
Educate, utility and public works as to the nature of the existence and nature of historic elements, artifacts, whatever, and modify their practices to help preserve.
So that would be under a recommendation, that would be a recommendation.
Which is
Well,
fine.
Well,
Educate,
let's put it there.
I think it's provide educational guidance. There's a couple of them for, yeah,
Yeah, that's not really addressing.
I know, so these are different educational resources to the public, educational guidance, so there's another opportunity to add educational guidance
Yeah.
towards, maintenance crews, et cetera.
Let's do that. That sounds like a great idea. And are you all interested in adding the recommendation as well that David just said?
Yeah,
Sure.
Okay, we can do that. And we only have 9 for heritage and preservation, so we have another slot available.
Yeah.
Okay, should we move on to recommendations?
yeah, we're kind of there, so.
Any comments?
Three feels long to me, but I don't have a very
I know.
I don't, it just feels long, that's all. That's my comment.
Yeah, and we actually played with this one a bit, and I think
Mhm.
it's because it's almost like this overarching vision in a sense, for integrating heritage and preservation into the town, some of the town's other efforts as this kind of larger strategy for economic development, for tourism, things like that. But we can, just knowing that it's a little bit long, we can noodle with it a bit.
Yeah,
Because some of this
Yeah.
might be better suited for the narrative.
yeah, I
Yeah.
just, or a reference to it, but it just feels like my eyes glazed over.
Yeah,
And I'm like,
yeah,
what? I was
totally.
reading something, yeah.
Other thoughts?
I'm good.
Okay. Energy and sustainability.
Under, it's the Energy Committee, not Commission.
I'm sorry, I feel like I've done that numerous times, and I swear I will get it one day. Because I feel like I've done that too often that I'm almost embarrassed by it. So thank you. Other comments?
Under strengths, should we say founding member of Community Power?
We
Just
can
to-
definitely add that.
Just to kind of
Is that,
toot our own horn and say that we're really being proactive in this kind of stuff?
That would maybe change the, like the first one.
yeah, I was gonna say.
Yes.
Yeah. First, yeah, for the first bullet.
Perfect.
We asked this question, I'm trying to see, do we know how, like, at this point, Phil, maybe you know this, or do we have any idea of like how many solar panels and kind of just that type of infrastructure that people have privately put in? I mean, it's
We-
increased.
We did get, and I feel like I'm gonna get this wrong, but we did get some numbers from, who was that, Rob?
Building inspector.
Building
Yeah.
inspector, yeah. So we do have those numbers that we were gonna refer to in the
Okay.
chapter.
The downstairs got all those.
I would be, I know we probably don't have, a good like historic, like, I don't know when they started tracking that.
Yeah, I
Um,
think it's, is it 5 or 10 years, Rob? I can't remember. It might be 10 years.
I think I gave you building permit data.
Cause I know our solar panels are probably at least 8 years old, and we were one of the first ones to really put up solar panels.
Yeah.
Outside of some stagnant ones on the roof, we were the first one that had trackers, almost.
I
In the
can
town.
talk to Julie, our assessing administrator. She may have some data.
I would love, like, I just think that's a strength. I'm starting to see more, at least
Yeah.
private homes. You know, we may not have
That's
a
great.
farm, but I think that acknowledging that the people are on their own property and homes,
Worth calling out.
worth going on.
The ones that you have
Mhm.
that's just for your home?
It feeds into
I
the
thought
grid
you-
somehow.
I thought you had for the neighborhood.
Nope,
Okay.
we don't have an electric bill, I'll tell you that.
Under weakness, where we say lack of three-phase power, that makes it sound like the town doesn't have any three-phase. And
Maybe limited.
Limited, yeah,
limited,
better word.
limited areas served by three-phase power.
Great.
Is that up to the electric company? How would you get it?
Energy people talk about this.
The utility charges to put,
Putting in your personal home?
not your personal home, but it's like a big conduit. And
Oh, it's like fiber optic.
I mean, that's part of what's going on with the, Main Street by the Whitney Hall right now this week is there was a gap in the access to three-phase power on that street. And so that's what they were doing, is putting that in,
It's interesting. It's good to
That's
know.
very expensive.
right?
Yeah. When I put my array in Canaan, they had it come like 200 yards, $30,000.
There it is, okay.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that.
Any other comments on the swap for energy and sustainability?
Typo under threat. Second bullet,
Oh, I see it.
Oh,
top. You are not encouraged to write with a Boston accent.
That's great.
Or a Maine accent.
Okay, energy and sustainability.
Recommendations.
okay. What is it, ASMR? Typing? Sorry.
I liked what you wrote.
That's great. I'm shocked that there's not more comments. This is a big one, and sustainability covers a lot of different topics. So we did
Yeah.
our best to include, some of these could essentially be in other chapters, but if this resonates, we did want to make sure it expanded beyond just energy. While
I would
also
only
making
say, my only comment is that 4 feels a little long again, but.
I'll note that. I'll note that.
As we talk about not adding in all of the
Examples, yeah.
examples, here's one where we've got all the examples, so. that's all.
Totally.
But I like the sentiment of it, so I want to make sure that we don't lose that by, right. Over here.
Yeah, we'll look at that one again just to see if we can cut it a bit.
I think so.
Under 7,
People who aren't familiar.
Yes.
I think it may be possible for us to include a requirement for some EV charging on new multifamily construction, if we write our zoning regs properly,
A requirement for it, or
a requirement.
We have a requirement for bike racks, don't we?
do you have to have a bike
Do
rack
we?
on your house?
I don't think so.
I thought we did.
I'd love that.
In our master plan, or in our, when we do site planning.
And this would be a multifamily housing, so that would, trigger site plan review, and typically probably a developer is coming in. Potentially,
Yeah.
or maybe a conversion of just a property owner, conversion of a structure, but
Not a bad idea.
okay. Any other comments?
I'm not, this is a general thing, and that the whole thing about stormwater kept being a recurring theme over and over again in many of the sections. I'm not quite sure what I'm saying, but I'm just acknowledging that that's an overriding issue.
It is.
And so that has to do with, I guess, sustainability.
It has to do with climate change and in their sustainability, but climate change. So again, climate change is including that it's the hottest summer
Right.
yet and the coolest summer for the future, right? It has to do with the storms that are coming through and the different weather patterns. And now as we see, we were talking about before the meeting started, there's flooding 2 years in a row that's devastating up in some northern parts, and And that stuff
Right.
still happened here last year, and we're seeing, so how we manage that, and that's part of climate change, and I think that using those words is, acknowledging that and planning, so that goes in with sustainability, it goes in with,
Yeah.
town facilities, any type of,
Yeah.
it goes in with conservation, because, as we know, I think in the conservation one, I just lost the whole thing, it talked about, a lot of it's not the only thing that's causing them, but the cyanobacteria blooms on the lakes.
Right.
And why we had so many last year is because of all the stormwater
The
runoff.
torrential rains, we were
Right.
lucky we missed them this weekend because we.
Right,
Yeah.
so it's like, those are things that are having a bigger,
Right.
and that's why
Change-
stormwater, but
So
it's,
changing climate,
yeah,
I think the term of art, which could be used across several chapters, is implement best management practices for stormwater runoff.
So we have that, right? Let me see what we have. Okay, so I think actually what we could do is we could just add a recommendation within the energy and sustainability set that says just that, implement best management practices to improve stormwater management in general. And right now in the conservation set, we have increased green infrastructure systems. But I think that, what do you guys think? Is that too similar? Do you mind having them in slightly different in two different locations?
I like having them in different locations,
Yeah.
because one of the struggles that we have with the master plan is that all these things are connected, that there is multi-layers to different things, there's conflicting
Yeah.
ideas. There's things that there's intersections and, yeah, so I like having it in different places, so.
Great.
Especially the stuff that is impacting on a larger, scale, whether we want it to or not.
They're all gonna,
so, I
We
mean,
can do
that's,
that.
that addresses the stormwater, but I think the broader issue again is becoming more climate resilient. I'm not
Mhm.
quite sure. I'm just trying to put it in a non-politically charged way.
Yeah.
We
Climate
can,
change, climate resilient. I think we call things what they actually are. And the folks that want to deny it are gonna have a problem with it no matter what.
so I think in general, the becoming more climate resilient is going to be a really obvious theme in the narrative for sure.
Yeah.
And so that will kind of serve as this overarching like principle in a sense that informs all of these other recommendations. However, if you think that if there's a specific draft recommendation that needs to somehow kind of call out an action that the town could do to become more climate resilient, let us know what that could be.
Thank you.
Okay, great. So that's it for the draft recommendations. We 10 minutes to spare, so I'm very well. Granted, I know we could have gone to 8:30. It's always nice when it's an hour and a half, though. So next steps.
Yeah, next
Okay.
steps.
So I looked at my calendar, both Steve and I, and with the way that the task force meeting schedule is set up for September, it's a little tight. And so what we would like to propose with an additional something to chew on is that your first meeting in October is October 9th, your task force meeting. We would love to work on getting you drafts, a complete set of all draft chapters, at least a week, if not more. We'd like 10 days would be great, I think, for review before the 9th. So, at least a week, if not, we'll say 7 to 10 days for you to begin reviewing those chapters. The other thing is that because we originally said September, is that if we have, a batch of 2 finished for your September 16th meeting, if you want us to send them separate, that's something we can do. So it depends on the group, and yeah, if that's of interest, we can send you, 2 chapters on September 16th and then the rest on October 9th. And we feel a lot more comfortable getting the 5 done in that time frame. How does that
Yeah.
sound to folks? Is there concerns?
I think if, I would like to see a couple of chapters in September if you've
Great.
got them. If you've got them ready to submit for our review, and then the rest, for that October meeting.
Perfect.
And we'll review all of them in October.
That sounds great.
Is the group comfortable with that?
Yeah, I'd like to split it up. Doing 5 chapters in one meeting is
Great.
it's too much. That way we
And
can,
theoretically, you have another meeting in October. I mean, you can even look at two during that 9th meeting and then 1 more in mid-October. It's totally up to you. Okay. That sounds great. Thanks. It's really great meeting with you all. I don't tell this to everyone, but you're definitely one of my favorite communities that we're working with right now.
Hey, Liz,
Yes.
before you guys sign off, we have 2 members of the public here, and I'd like to open it up to them for any questions or comments that they may have regarding what we've talked about tonight.
Please do.
On the spot.
David? You don't have to.
Where do we get drafts of what you present?
our drafts open to the public. I'm not perfectly
it's-
comfortable with that. Just
it's
because it's a
you
draft.
all.
It's a draft. And once we have a full draft that we're ready to submit, that we're gonna ask for feedback on, that will be,
We can see
There.
it here. We can-
so, yeah. Cause this is all in work. Like, this is not, there's nothing here. And so what happens is that then people get hyper focused in on something that may not make it into the final draft position. You've got to
It's a
start,
lot to digest as something you have said.
absolutely.
Once without reading.
This is a working,
Fine.
I mean, this is the same thing that we wrestled with the first 5 chapters of master plan. We recognize the fact that these are working documents, but they're also subject to 91A, and they are public documents, and
So we can have it through 91A? Yeah. Give to you. Okay.
yeah,
Is there gonna be another public comment for Janelle at the end of the meeting? Or is this the?
do they involve things that, no, okay, then we'll let you do your other comments, after they sign off. Okay. Goodbye, ladies.
Thank you all. Thank you all. We'll
Thank
be in
you.
touch. Okay, bye-bye.
Hi.
Thank you.
All right. Old business, new business. Any of either?
no, we don't have any meetings in August. So, we'll plan to be here for the September 16th. If we feel that we need more time as a committee, that without resilience, we'll do a second one in September. But if we come prepared and have good discussion, I think we'll have one in September. And then one, there'll be a little bit more in October. So it's gonna go a little later than we had hoped, but it's a looser schedule.
Right, I am gonna be out of town
Okay.
in October.
So if, we'll make sure to get, if you can, submit anything that you can, like you'll get the stuff ahead of time. Like you're gonna get the documents. So if you have specific comments, we'll be able to give those to us so that we can discuss them or.
Sure, I
Yeah.
am not sure about, depending on which chapters.
Sure.
I will put my comments in.
Sure.
Sure.
We can recommend, we can actually ask Liz if they would work on, which ones they're gonna work on first. I know we seem to get things in the same order, but we can see if they can switch the order and give us energy by September.
That would be helpful.
I think that's a easy ask.
Good.
And if they absolutely can't do it,
Right.
we'll deal with it, but if they can,
Okay.
make it more convenient. Does anybody else have a scheduling conflict that we should try to, okay.
Can
All
we
right.
get paper copies of that? When it comes out?
Yeah, Rob can print off.
Good.
No problem. Anybody else want paper copies? Put in your orders now. I'd like a paper copy.
I guess I'm sorry, I'm back to the scheduling thing about October. I'm not gonna be here for October, so those last two chapters, regardless of which ones they are, I'm not really, we'll have a second meeting in October, right?
I'm assuming, so October 9th will be a meeting with Resilience with 3 chapters to
Mhm.
discuss. At that point in time, there's still more work that has to be done. They need to put things into the full draft form, which is then gonna be put out for the public, which is why I was wondering why we give documents that aren't actual documents. But that's where then we're gonna get feedback. So there's still other processes to happen. Like, it's not like we only get feedback on October 9th and then they write it and it's done.
Right, so
Yeah.
we would be getting the documents for the October 9th meeting. We were asked for like 10 days before.
Yeah.
And so that would be.
Yeah.
Okay,
And so if there's any way, but there's also probably opportunity after that.
Okay.
So we want to respect your time and space.
thank you.
Just as a follow-up to David's request for draft copies, I would ask that you respect the fact that these are early drafts and that you not circulate them.
It's for personal use and my wife will probably want to read it too.
That's fine. What I don't want to see happen is that half the town gets something through the listserv or the rumor mill that we haven't had a chance to look at, and that when we see it and discuss it in a group, we say, that wasn't what we meant at all. I would like to avoid the possibility of a tempest in a teapot over something that we haven't discussed and that we haven't commented on as a task force.
When you have a public meeting, it's open for public discussion outside this meeting.
That's fine. These are
I
working documents.
understand that,
These are
David.
working documents. They're not.
I
anything
understand.
final. And that's where it's not, they're working documents. So, it's just making that clear. And if there are comments by the public, great, they're working documents. We're not taking, we'll ask, there's a point in time when feedback will be asked for. And right now, on the specific information in this, we're not asking for feedback on that. There's a time point for that, which is where the community forums have been. We're not doing that every single meeting. Or in other places like listservs. So it's hindering the process.
All right, anything else? We have the next steps. Somebody want to make a motion to adjourn?
Were there any other public comments?
Oh,
It would be helpful, I know you're not required, prescribed to have any agenda out and the announcements, on the town, website or any other.
agenda's up.
I know it is, but more detail would be very helpful for, those of us who attend sometimes, but not others, to decide, when the appropriate, meetings might be. For example, if the general, categories for discussion tonight had been listed, for what the consultants were gonna discuss, that would have been helpful.
Well, we expect you who have been following this to know that phase 2 of the master plan consists of 5 chapters and what those chapters are.
At this point. Got a few other things I like.
All right,
Anything else?
Oh, we adjourned.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstention? We are adjourned at, let's call it 7:58.
can we turn that thing off? It's recording. It's I say things.
Is it off?
Oh, yeah.
Hold on.
Ah,
Stop
wrong
recording.
hand.
Stop.